Listen, before we talk about flowers and tuxedos and cameras flashing like summer lightning, before we talk about the high doors that would not open, there was a ring. Not big. Not loud. Gold warmed by 1,000 touchings. A ring that learned the map of one woman's hand and never forgot it. Hold that in your mind for a breath. Hold the shine. Hold the weight. Because everything that follows leans on that small circle of promise, the way a roof leans on one quiet beam. Now I will tell you slowly. No rush. Let the pictures form the way steam rises from a pot on the stove. See her first. Evelyn. Folks called her Mama Ev. A small woman with a soft walk like she didn't want to trouble the floor. You know the type. The one who remembers birthdays with a card and a $5 bill tucked inside, but never remembers to buy herself shoes before the heel gives out. She lived in a narrow apartment in a brick building with a hallway that smelled of pine sol and somebody's dinner. America in the 90s. Bare bulbs in stairwells. Radios tuned to quiet storm late at night. A payphone on the corner that people lined up for with quarters warmed in their palms. If you stood by her kitchen window at certain hours you could hear tires send a wet whisper through the street and, on Fridays, somebody's old Crown Vic coughing itself awake. A country of large dreams and small kitchens. A country that made you stretch $1 until the color changed. She had one son. Just one. Darius. A long baby who grew into a long boy who grew into a man who sometimes laughed like a door opening to fresh air. When he was little, she'd keep the windows cracked to let the heat out while the pot watched itself, and she'd hum church tunes without words. He'd sit on the floor with a cereal box drum and tap along. Tap tap. Summer light on linoleum. Food stamps on the table. A neighbor's TV bleeding a game through the wall. The 90s had a way of making noise feel like company. Now, her wedding ring, listen here, and lean close, her wedding ring was the one thing she had that felt like a soft answer to a hard question. Her husband, Lionel, was already a story by the time Darius packed his first backpack for school. Lionel wasn't a villain. He was a man who said yes to a night shift that never ended. Trucking, then odd jobs, then a breath that went wrong in winter and did not come back. A good man can still leave. A good man can still become a photograph in a frame with a tiny scratch on the glass that your finger always finds. The ring stayed. Some nights she wore it. Some nights she tied it on a string and set it near the light so it could be warmed by morning. Darius held it once when he was maybe 10. He was careful without being told. Children know when something holy has been placed in their hands. He turned it in the light and asked what it meant besides the obvious thing. She told him marriage is not just two faces close together in a picture. It is the quiet carrying and the early waking. It's the way you hold a person's worst days without squeezing too hard. He nodded, too young to grasp it, old enough to feel the seriousness of the air. She kissed the top of his head and slid the ring back where it belonged. These are the small moments that become the stitching inside a person's life. You don't see the thread. You move because it holds. Time kept walking. It never once looked back. Darius made it to high school with a stride. He had a smile that moved people toward him. He could talk you into laughing when you swore you had no laughter left. He worked at the grocery store 2 blocks down, the one with the flickering light over the produce. Bagging, then stocking. His name tag crooked. His sleeves pushed up. He helped Mama Ev with bills. They learned the shape of shared hunger and shared relief. Every August, new notebooks, bought late when the price dipped. Every December, church coats that smelled like cedar and hope. College? That was a dream spoken in a small voice, then set aside when life put new numbers on the table. The 90s did that. They handed out decisions like chipped plates. You took what you were given and still tried to eat with grace. He worked. He saved. He met people. He moved through rooms that Mama Ev would never enter. There's no shame in that. Children find hallways that parents could only point toward. That is what you want for them, until the hallway starts to feel like a river moving them away. He met Alana on a Tuesday that felt like Saturday. At least that's how he told it. She was all plans and polish. Quick with her words. Nails like glass. A woman who carried a planner with tabs for things that had not even happened yet. She had ideas that made rooms feel smaller until they were done. She wanted nice things and was not wrong for it. Wanting is a language we learn early. Some of us just get better teachers. When he brought her by for the first time, they stood in the doorway too long like people do when they are shy about entering a different kind of air. The apartment had that fresh lemon smell. A little pot on the stove, always. A picture of Lionel watching. Alana smiled and tightened her scarf and said yes ma'am and no ma'am, but you could feel the space between her world and this one. Not a mean thing. A simple distance. The kind that makes voices careful. Mama Ev saw it all and kept her hands quiet. She had her way of reading people without making them feel read. She poured sweet tea into glasses that had a little fog on them from the cold. She told a story to loosen the room about the one time Darius tried to fry bologna and ended up sending the whole apartment into an alarm scream. They laughed. The sound bounced off the cheap cabinets and came back a second time like a blessing returning to the sender. For a minute, they were 3 points on one line. Then the moment slid away. As moments do. Darius called more after that, but the calls were shorter. People who are building a life hold clocks differently. He was out late at places with lighting that made everything look cleaner than it was. He wore shirts that came in bags with tissue paper. He began to speak like a man who figured out how to climb ladders that had always been hidden behind curtains. He wasn't ashamed, and he wasn't cruel. He was just moving, and motion can feel like a goodbye even when the mouth says hello. Watch the hands. See the small marks on her fingers where rings once lived. See the lotion pulled from its bottle with a soft squeeze. Hear the plastic crackle. See her rub each finger like she is coaxing warmth into bone. This is a scene you must keep, because it comes back later with a different light on it. The engagement news was a bright thing announced in a fast voice. He did it at a restaurant with white plates big enough to skate on, he said, half laughing. There was a waiter holding a small cake with a sparkler. Alana cried in a way that did not smudge her makeup. He said it like a boy. He said it like a man. He said it like a person who had found a door and walked through it without checking if it would swing shut. Mama Ev said praise God and meant it. Then she turned her face and let her smile rest in a quiet place where nobody could touch it. The wedding plans came like a river in spring. Fast. Loud. Carrying branches. There was talk of venues with ceilings so high you could stack dreams in the corners. There were tastings and lists and deposits. There were linens with names you only hear when someone else is paying. There were people who said, brand, when they meant the day two hearts try to stand still together in front of witnesses. The 90s were already running toward a new kind of shine. Folks wanted polish like it could wash away all the old dust. Darius called his mother daily for a stretch and then less. He sounded like he was walking as he spoke. He sounded busy in a way that made her proud and lonesome at the same time. He said there would be 9 groomsmen because symmetry mattered. He said the photographer was top shelf, like liquor. He said the venue had rules about seating and attire and arrival windows, and they'd have security because, you never know. He said these things without knowing which words were small knives. Not because he was bad. Because he was new. New to a world that treats the old like a mirror it does not want to look into. There was money talk, of course. There always is. Weddings pull money the way the moon pulls water. The numbers rose like bread. You blinked and they were higher. He mentioned gaps. He laughed about it first. Then he didn't. He said they were trying to make everything right. He said the word budget like it had teeth. He mentioned that Alana's people were already stretched and that he wanted to contribute in a way that set the tone for the life he planned to live. He was a good son talking through a fog of new dreams. The night after that call, she sat at the kitchen table with receipts spread like playing cards. Rent. Light bill. Medicine for knees that sang when it rained. She had some set aside. Not a lot. Enough to ease a month if the bus stopped coming. She looked at her checkbook and then at the small velvet box tucked in the drawer where she kept letters and church fans. She reached for it and pulled it close like a secret you weren't sure you should confess. Open the box with me now. See how the inside holds that soft material that pretends to be sky. See the dent where the ring sits because it has lived there long enough to leave a memory. See the ring itself. Not loud. Not big. Nothing an appraiser would sing about. But you know value when you feel it. You know the way love wears itself into metal until it holds a print like a fingerprint. She touched it with one fingertip. She didn't cry. That might surprise you. Sometimes tears are loud when you least need them and quiet when a choice is standing in the doorway like a person. She closed the box. She opened it again. Memory has a way of playing small films when you don't press any button. The day she pressed the ring to her lips before she took it off for the first time, because the swelling took what it wanted. She set the ring on the table. She turned off the radio so the apartment could listen with her. Then she spoke into the air like women do when a house is the only witness. If I can take this small circle and turn it into a door for my boy, she said, then let me be someone who opens doors. It wasn't a prayer exactly. It wasn't not one. Next day she walked to a shop she had never walked into before. She had the ring in her pocket with a tissue wrapped around it. She touched it now and then to be sure it was still there. The man behind the counter said numbers that did not recognize the ring's real name. He quoted weight. He quoted market. She nodded. Her face was a quiet lake. He asked if she was sure, the way people do when they've already counted the cash. She was sure. She left with an envelope that felt lighter than it should. The door chimed as she stepped back into the world. The light outside had shifted as if the day had passed through a thin grief. She didn't call him right then. She took the long way home, past the park where small kids fell and learned to get up without making a scene. When she finally told him she had a little extra to help, he argued in that polite way that gives up easy. He said no at first. He said he couldn't take it. He said they'd be fine with less. Then he said maybe it would be good to add the extra table for Alana's co-workers, given expectations. Expectation. That word sits like a stone when you swallow it. He thanked her. He said she was the best. He said he'd pay her back, and she told him not to dare. She told him this is what a mother's hands are for. To hold. To give. To know when the weight needs moving. He promised to come by that weekend. He did not. He sent a message. Not because he didn't care. Because things were fast now. The venue needed this. The caterer needed that. The suit needed picking up. The playlist needed trimming. The planner needed answers, and the planner had a voice like a whistle. She felt the days go by like grocery receipts slipping from a pocket. A packet came in the mail, heavy with cardstock and shine. The invitation. Raised lettering so pretty it made her think of icing. Her name there like she belonged to a special list. She smiled without showing teeth. She set it upright on the table in front of Lionel's picture so he could see. She traced the date with a finger. A Saturday. A season when the air wears new perfume and the sun holds its breath before it drops. The kind of day you save for big things so the sky can say amen. At church the ladies asked about the dress she'd wear. She laughed and said, "Oh, that old thing," and inside she saw the closet with 2 Sunday dresses that could pass on a good day and 1 black dress that had seen more farewells than should be allowed. She went to the thrift store that always surprised her. Sometimes it laid a small treasure right in her path like a cousin's handshake. A dress in deep blue. Not fancy. Not plain. Something that would let her move. She held it up to herself in the cracked mirror and tried to see what other people might see. A mother who had done the work and now stood ready to witness. She bought it. She carried it home like something that might fly away if she didn't keep singing to it under her breath. She ironed the dress 2 days early and hung it on the door so it could learn the shape of the day. She polished her shoes, the ones she'd managed to rescue with polish and faith. She pressed a handkerchief flat and tucked it in her purse with 2 mints, a comb, and the envelope with the receipt from the shop because you keep paper even when paper can't hold what it was given. On the Friday night before the wedding, she sat by the window with the light off. The city made little movies on the glass. She talked to Lionel without moving her lips. You do that when grief has lived with you long enough to learn your house rules. She told him his boy would stand straight tomorrow, and she wished he could see it with his living eyes. She told him about the ring, but she did not apologize. She told him love has a way of changing shape and still being love. She let the silence sit with her like an old friend who knows when not to talk. Darius called late. He was at a rehearsal dinner with too much butter on everything. He sounded happy and thin at the same time. He said the venue had a policy about guests arriving within a certain window and about the list being tight because of capacity. He said her name was on the list, of course, of course. He said, just be sure to be there a little early so there's no confusion, and she said she would. He said, Mom, don't be mad if I can't find you right away. There's going to be a lot moving. She said she would be a quiet tree in the corner. He laughed and said he loved her an embarrassing amount. He said it like a boy again, and she cradled that sound in her chest where the ring used to rest. She lays out her stockings just so. See how she folds the envelope with the bus fare and the backup cab cash. See how she writes her apartment number on a folded paper and tucks it near her ID because she is a woman who has learned that people sometimes forget your details at inconvenient times. See the comb. See the lipstick she saves for days that require a certain kind of courage. She sleeps in pieces that night. 2 hours here then an hour there. Dreams stitched with loose thread. She pins her hair and smooths the dress and looks into the mirror that has seen her face change without keeping score. All right, she says to the woman who looks back. Let's go see what love can do. Not a prayer. Not one. She takes the invitation and slips it into her purse in case somebody needs proof that she belongs. She takes a breath that reaches the bottom of her lungs. She locks the door. She checks it twice. Then she steps into the hallway and the day takes her hand. Outside the sky is doing that clear thing that makes everything under it feel almost honest. The bus comes exactly when it wants, not when the schedule claims. Inside, the driver greets her with a nod. A boy gives up his seat without being asked because his mother raised him right. The route lines the edge of neighborhoods that wear different faces but share the same eyes. She holds the purse on her lap with both hands the way you hold a sleeping cat. At the transfer stop, she steps down and adjusts her shoe. A woman with earrings big enough to make their own entrance asks where she's headed, dressed like Sunday came early. "My son's wedding," she says, and the woman smiles, a real smile, the kind that enters a house without knocking. "May the day treat you right," the woman says. "May every seat be your seat." Blessings fall in public like that sometimes. Strangers lay them on you and keep walking. The second bus rolls in with a sigh. The city grows taller as she rides. Glass buildings that look like they have nothing to do with people who wake at 5 to make $1. She can feel the change in the air. She sits up straighter without deciding to. She rehearses a smile for meeting Alana's aunties. She prepares the little phrases she will use to praise the centerpieces, even if they look like something that belongs in a magazine she does not read. When she steps off downtown, the sidewalks push a different tempo. She follows the small map on the back of the invitation like it is a prayer in a language she has learned phonetically. Then the venue rises in front of her like a story someone else wrote. She pauses, straightens the hem of her dress, touches her necklace. Not the ring. The place where the ring isn't. There is no tremble in her hands. At venue, the door will spin. And voices will gather. And names will be checked against lists that do not know the old way of welcoming, the old way of saying any friend of the bride, any kin of the groom, "Come sit, come eat, come be in the light with us." Hear the soft scuff of her shoe as she steps to the desk where the lists wait under the hands of a woman with neat hair and a smile fastened tight like a brooch. See how Mama Ev's shoulders square. See how the years gather at the corners of her eyes and then smooth away because dignity has taught them how. You know who she is now. You know what she has given. You know the coin she paid, not just in money, but in memory. A mother's brave face. The way a ring might have smiled if rings could speak. On her hands again. The fingers relax. The purse strap is adjusted. The invitation is removed and held like a flag of a small country that still believes in kindness. Now she says, "Good morning," to the woman with the list, and we glide forward, still with her, still inside her breath, still holding the light where the ring once sat. And the city keeps humming. And the bus keeps its schedule for someone else. And the glass door turns. And the story leans toward the hour it has been waiting for. The woman at the desk was young, maybe late 20s, maybe the kind of young that believes life waits politely for you to arrive. Her smile was professional, which is another way of saying it was borrowed from training. Her eyes dropped to the clipboard, not the face before her. "Name?" she asked, pen ready, already preparing to cross or check, not realizing she was holding the edge of a woman's dignity in the space between her fingers. "Evelyn Johnson," Mama Ev said, voice steady, soft like worn wood. She held out the invitation, the card heavy in her palm, the lettering catching the light. The young woman scanned, lips moving silently across the rows. Her pen paused. Then tapped. Once. Twice. 3 times. The sound small but sharp enough to be heard over the low throb of music inside. "I don't see," she began. Her eyes lifted then, not to the woman, but past her, toward the next guest who was already reaching for their purse, their name, their proof. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, not desperate, not loud, just firm the way roots push under soil. "It should be there," she said. "I am the groom's mother." She flips a page, checks again. There are names. Dozens. Some written in bold. some with special stars. But not hers. Not here. The groom's mother, the girl repeated, like the words were a question and not a fact. Yes, Mama Ev said. And she held her ground. Behind her the door spun again and two women stepped in, perfume trailing like ribbon. Their laughter was bright and careless. They brushed past her, names spilling easily, and the pen moved without pause. They were waved through, heels clicking against marble, bodies swallowed by music and light. The girl looked back, a small crease now forming at the edge of her smile. "Ma'am, are you sure?" Maybe, do you have someone who can?" Her voice trailed, unsure of how to wrap itself around the discomfort it had created. Evelyn opened her purse, fingers brushing the handkerchief, the comb, the receipt she carried like a talisman. She lifted the invitation, held it steady, as if it were a shield. "My son is Darius," she said slowly. "He is marrying Alana today. And I came to see him take his vow." The girl shifted. She looked past Evelyn again. This time she signaled. A man in a black suit approached, tall, shoulders squared by training. "Security. Problem?" the man asked, his voice clipped. The girl hesitated. "This guest says she is the groom's mother." The man's eyes flicked over Evelyn. From scarf to shoes. From purse to face. A scan, not a seeing. Then he looked at the list the girl held, tapped the column with his finger. "Not here." "I told you," Evelyn said, her voice still level but carrying a quiet iron now, the kind that comes from years of holding ground. "I am his mother." The man exhaled through his nose. He did not argue. He did not soften. He gestured slightly, a movement meant to direct, not to discuss. "Ma'am, if your name is not on the list, I cannot let you through. That is policy." Policy. That word, heavy with steel. Policy is not a face. Policy is not a story. Policy does not know about wedding rings sold in quiet rooms, about hands rubbed raw for rent, about boys lifted on a single woman's back until they could stand on their own. Policy does not care for history. Policy only checks columns and counts chairs. She did not cry. She straightened her shoulders. She looked the man in the eyes. "Tell my son," she said, each word clear as a church bell, "that his mother came. And tell him she was not allowed in." The man shifted. The girl bit her lip. The music swelled from inside, some joyous tune meant to crown the day. Outside, Evelyn's words settled like stones at the bottom of a river. Another guest entered. Another name checked. Another smile waved through. The world did not stop. The door kept spinning. Evelyn stepped aside, slow, deliberate. She adjusted the strap of her purse. She looked once at the glass doors, the golden light leaking through. Then she turned. Not hurried. Not stumbling. Each step measured, as if she were marking a rhythm only she could hear. And outside the air caught her. The sky did not ask for her name. The street did not demand a list. The wind did not deny her passage. She walked into it, head held steady, eyes dry, the ring now fully gone, its sacrifice swallowed by a celebration she would not see. The wedding inside began with a swell of strings, the kind of music chosen to make people forget they are sitting in rented chairs. She stood outside, listening to a joy that had no seat for her. Her hands stayed still. That was her strength, stillness. Some people fight by shouting. Some by pleading. But a mother who has held her life in check learns the power of not moving, not breaking, not giving her pain to the crowd. She waited. The ceremony ticked forward, each vow a muffled whisper in the air, each applause a reminder of where she was not. She felt the absence in her pocket now, the velvet box gone, replaced by nothing. Sacrifice turned into chairs and plates she would never see. She pressed her palm against her purse as though she might feel the ghost of it there. Nothing. Just air. 15 minutes. The doors opened again. This time a photographer stepped out, adjusting his camera strap, speaking into a headset. Behind him, a sliver of sound, vows completed, applause fading. She caught a glimpse of her son's voice in the rhythm of that crowd, even if she couldn't hear the words. For a moment, her eyes softened. She pictured him in a suit, shoulders straight, hands trembling slightly as he held his bride's fingers. She had raised him for this moment. And now, she was a ghost on the pavement. 20 minutes. A hush inside, then a burst of music, the reception beginning. Evelyn moved closer to the door. Not begging. Not desperate. Just close enough to let the sound brush her skin. Her chest rose and fell slow, like waves hitting a shore. She whispered once, under her breath, "God, let him know I am here." It was not a prayer of entry. It was a prayer of recognition. She did not need a chair. She needed her presence to be felt, even if unseen. Another guest stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp with urgency. She stopped short when she saw Evelyn, studied her for a second, then turned away, voice dropping. 25 minutes. The security man returned, his expression tighter now. "Ma'am," he said, his voice rehearsed. "You can't keep standing here. You're making the guests uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. That word. As though her existence was an inconvenience, as though her years of labor, her sacrifice, her souled ring, all of it, was a disruption to the curated image inside. Evelyn tilted her chin. She did not shout. She did not plead. "Tell my son his mother waits outside," she repeated, slower this time, each syllable carved with steel. The man's jaw twitched. He gave a small shake of his head, the kind that says a message will not be delivered, that silence will serve as the only reply. 30 minutes. She stepped down the stairs, away from the entrance. The city hummed around her, cars sliding past, voices rising, footsteps quick. She found a bench beneath a tree that had been planted in a square of soil cut from the concrete. She sat, her dress folding carefully beneath her, her purse still in her lap. From here, the music was muffled, but still there, teasing, mocking, reminding. She leaned back, eyes closing for a breath. The ring again. The sacrifice again. The memory of her husband's hand placing it on hers, and now, the echo of her own hand giving it away. She thought of Darius as a child, running down the street with one shoe untied, laughing, calling for her to watch him jump the curb. She thought of nights he cried from fever and she pressed cool cloths to his forehead. She thought of mornings he sat with cereal while she laced her shoes for work. She thought of all the years she had been inside his life, not outside of it. Now here she was, on the pavement, while strangers clinked glasses to his name. 40 minutes. The photographer returned, stepping quickly, eyes scanning. He stopped when he noticed her, lifted his camera slightly, then hesitated. Something in her stillness told him this image would be too true, too sharp, too heavy for an album meant to sparkle. He lowered it, nodded once, then slipped back inside. But she had seen the flash of temptation in his eyes. Even strangers could feel the weight of her exclusion. 50 minutes. The sky began to tilt toward evening, the light growing softer, shadows stretching. Evelyn remained seated, her body steady, her breath slow. On Evelyn's hands folded in her lap, the faint outline of veins, the marks of labor. A mother's hands denied a place at her son's table. An hour passed. Then another. Inside, the music grew louder, then softer, then laughter again. Speeches, toasts, dances. The layers of celebration stacking while Evelyn sat in the shadow of the building, her sacrifice forgotten by those it had served. Each cheer was another stone. Each song another cut. Each moment another reminder that her love had been accepted in silence but her presence rejected in public. And yet, she did not leave. This was her strength. She remained. As if her stillness could speak louder than absence. As if by staying, by holding her place outside, she could etch her love into the night, make it undeniable, unerasable, unforgotten. The night grew heavier, the city humming as though it knew secrets behind every lit window. Evelyn stayed rooted to her bench, hands folded, eyes calm but far away. Inside, the music shifted, first a swell of jazz, then a song with a bass line deep enough to rattle glass. Guests shouted with joy, clapped in rhythm, raised glasses high. But sound carries strange truths. Among the laughter, there was a gap. A small absence. One voice missing. A man's voice. Darius had been pulled this way and that, congratulations, speeches, first dances, but now he felt the hole. Somewhere deep, the instinct of a child stretched, searching for the presence that steadies. A mother's presence. He scanned the room, smiling on the outside, heart twitching on the inside. His bride glowed beside him, surrounded by family, friends, her aunties holding court, her cousins snapping photos. He laughed when he was supposed to laugh, nodded when he was supposed to nod. But the ache grew. A question whispering louder each second, where is she? 20 minutes past the first dance, he slipped away. Down a hallway lined with mirrors. Past a door guarded by the same man in a black suit. He leaned in, lowered his voice. My mother, did she come? The guard's eyes shifted, just a flicker, before he smoothed his face. There was a woman earlier. Said she was the groom's mother. Her name wasn't on the list. She was asked to leave. Those words cut. They didn't stab. They cut slow, deep, like a blade pressing under the skin. Darius froze. His mouth opened, closed. His pulse stumbled. What did you say? The guard repeated it, quieter this time, as if sound itself carried guilt. And there it was. The twist breaking the air. The son, who had walked with confidence, who had believed the new world he had built could stand tall, now felt the ground tilt beneath him. His mother had been outside. His mother had been denied. His mother had come and been turned away like a stranger. He pressed his palm to his forehead. Inside, the music kept booming, people cheering, glasses clinking. But in him, silence. A ringing silence, loud enough to drown the celebration. He saw her face in his memory, eyes steady, smile quiet, hands carrying weight without complaint. He saw the years. The sacrifices. The way she had raised him from scratch with nothing but prayer and grit. And now, she had been told she did not belong. His chest tightened. Guilt flooding sharp and sudden. Anger too, but not at her. At the world he had allowed to draw circles without her name inside. He had not checked the list. He had not insisted. He had not thought. And now the woman who had given him everything was sitting somewhere in the dark, carrying the sting of being excluded from her own child's day. He turned. Fast. His footsteps sharp on the marble. The guard called after him, but he didn't hear. he pushed through the doors, into the cool night. His eyes scanned the street, the shadows, the small clusters of smokers and talkers. And then he saw her. On his eyes widening. Close on her still figure on the bench. There she was. Not weeping. Not begging. Sitting still. Purse on her lap. Dressed neat. As if the earth itself had placed her there to test his heart. "Mom," he whispered, but it broke like a shout in his chest. He walked fast, then slower, then stopped 2 steps away. He didn't know if he should kneel or sit or fall. He only knew he had wronged her without meaning to, and wrongs like this don't wash away easy. She looked up. Their eyes met. In hers, no anger. No performance. Just the deep well of a mother's gaze, the one that holds love and disappointment together, heavy, unshaken. "You came," he said, voice rough. "I told you I would," she answered. Her voice was low, steady. The kind of voice that makes truth heavier than any scream. "I didn't know," he swallowed hard. "I didn't. I should have," words tripped over each other. None strong enough to hold the weight. She lifted her hand, palm open, silencing him without sound. "It is done," she said. "You have your day. That is enough." But he shook his head. "No, Mama. Not enough. Never enough." He sat beside her, the suit tight across his shoulders, sweat beading his forehead despite the cool air. He looked at her hands, folded in her lap. For a moment, he wanted to reach for them, to hold them like he had when he was small. But shame froze him. She turned her gaze toward the glow spilling from the glass doors. The laughter, the clinking, the music. "They did not want me there," she said softly. "And you did not fight for me to be there." The word struck. Not sharp, but final. He bowed his head. His breath caught. For the first time that day, he felt like a child again, small, fragile, guilty. She told him, voice quiet as a hymn, "I gave them my ring." He blinked. "What?" "My ring," she repeated, eyes steady on him. "The only thing of worth I had. Your father's promise. I sold it, so your day could shine. So you could walk into this place with no shadow on your back." And then the same day, the same moment, the door was shut in my face. Her words were a stone breaking water. Ripples spreading fast. His chest heaved, eyes stung. He had known she helped. He had not known the cost. The image of that ring, his father's ring, slid into his mind, gleaming, full of history, full of love. Now gone. Sold. Given up so he could have chairs, plates, flowers. Tears came, hot, sudden, not for himself but for her. For what she gave. For what he let slip. He pressed his hands to his face, choking on the sound of it. "Mama. I." But she cut him with a gentle tone, sharper than any blade. "Don't speak it now. Words cannot sew what is torn. Live it. Carry it. Let it change how you hold the years to come." The night leaned in. The music muffled behind the glass. On that bench, beneath the quiet tree, the wedding was happening, but so was something greater. A reckoning. A twist. A mother revealing the depth of her sacrifice, and a son seeing himself, maybe for the first time, through her eyes. The music inside the hall climbed higher, swelling like waves crashing against glass. Toasts rang out. Glasses touched. Names were called. But on the bench outside, under the soft lamp that painted her face in gold and shadow, another kind of ceremony was happening. A mother and son sitting with truth heavy between them, heavier than any vows. Darius's hands trembled against his knees. He wanted to run back inside, to rip the microphone from whoever held it, to tell the whole hall who sat outside, to shame them with her name. But his mother's calm stopped him. She was not begging for recognition. She was not pleading for correction. She sat like stone, weathered, silent, holding more than words could carry. He looked at her again, and for the first time in years, he saw not just his mother but the weight of her years. The tiredness behind her eyes. The lines written by labor and grief. The way her dress, neat as it was, carried the quiet pride of thrift. He felt shame rising like fire in his throat. "I thought," he whispered, his voice barely holding, "I thought this day was ours. But it was mine. Only mine. And it cost you what you should never have had to give." She did not nod. She did not shake her head. She simply said, "Now you know." Her words sat in him like a seed, pressed deep, waiting to grow into something he would never escape. From inside, the DJ called his name. "Where's the groom? We need the groom." Laughter rose. People clapped, stomping in rhythm, calling for him to return. He did not move. Not yet. His body was split between two worlds. The one glowing with light, wine, and applause, and the one sitting in shadow beside the woman who had carved his path with her bare hands. "Go," she said finally, voice calm. "They are waiting for you. I can't leave you here." His words were rough, desperate. "You already did," she answered softly, and her eyes did not flinch. That truth broke him. Tears slipped fast now, catching the lamplight as they fell. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to steady his breath. His mother reached out finally, after all the stillness, after all the silence. Her hand rested on his back, slow, gentle. Not forgiving. Not yet. Just the reminder that she was still his mother. That love, even wounded, still chose to hold. They stayed like that a long moment. The sounds of joy spilling behind them, the pulse of regret beating between them. At last, she pulled her hand away, folding it back into her lap. Her eyes lifted toward the building, the glass glowing like a jewel box. "One day," she said, her voice low and steady, "you will stand where I stood. And you will remember. You will remember that no celebration, no crown, no room is worth more than the hands that raised you." He swallowed hard, words gone, silence his only reply. The DJ's voice echoed again, louder this time, half teasing, "Groom, don't hide on us now." Laughter followed. A chant began, people stomping their feet, clapping their hands. He stood slowly, shoulders heavy, suit wrinkled where he had leaned forward. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, but the redness stayed. "Go," she said again. Her voice gentler now, like the quiet end of a hymn. He looked at her, as if asking for permission, for forgiveness, for something he could not name. She gave him nothing but her steady gaze. That was enough. He turned, walked back up the steps, shoulders squared against the music that swallowed him whole. And she remained. Alone. On the bench. Purse in her lap. Dress folded neatly beneath her. A mother denied the light of her son's vows, holding instead the quiet night as witness. Love can sacrifice. Love can endure. But love, denied, will leave a mark deeper than any ring. And sometimes, the truest witness of a day is not in the photographs, not in the speeches, not in the songs, but in the silence of the one left outside. The night stretched on. Inside, The reception burned itself bright, songs overlapping with shouts, laughter echoing through the high ceilings. But outside, under the lamplight, Evelyn remained seated. Still. Steady. Her hands resting like folded wings. She could have left. The buses still ran, slow but faithful. The city waited with open streets. But she stayed. Not because she hoped for a call, not because she believed the door would open. She stayed because presence itself was her final word. To leave would mean silence. To remain meant bearing witness. And so she bore it, her own exclusion, her own sacrifice, her own invisible crown. In the hall, his lips moved, but his heart was not in the toast. Each time he laughed, his mind drifted to the bench outside. Each time he heard his name called in cheer, he remembered the way she said his name like a prayer when he was a child. And each time his bride squeezed his hand, he felt the absence of the one hand that had held him first. At the end of the night, when the last song played and the last cheers faded, when guests spilled into cars and taxis, Evelyn finally rose. Her body ached, but her step was steady. She walked slowly, purse clutched, the street carrying her in silence. She did not look back. She did not need to. The story of the night had already written itself into her bones. And somewhere deep inside, her son would carry it too. No matter the photographs, no matter the videos, no matter the albums they would flip through later with polished smiles, the truth was this: the mother who sold her ring to buy his joy was left outside the doors of her own child's wedding. That truth could not be erased. Remember this, those who hear. Joy is hollow if it forgets the hands that built it. Gold is cheap if it costs you the ones who raised you. And doors, no matter how wide they open for strangers, mean nothing if they close on the mother who carried you. So if you listen, let this tale sit with you like an ember in the dark. Ask yourself whose hands you have overlooked, whose sacrifice you have spent without thanks, whose name might be missing from the lists you keep. Do not wait until benches outside your celebrations become thrones of sorrow. Do not let love stand in the cold while you drink in the light. Because when the music fades, when the lights go out, when the photographs yellow and the hall grows quiet, only one truth will remain: the mother who gave her ring was turned away, and the son who let it happen will never escape the sound of her silence. If this story pressed on you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next drumbeat. Comment one boundary you refuse to cross for love. Share this with a friend who needs the reminder: love is care, not chains. What lesson have you learned? Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments box. Bye.